Hi, welcome back to Mushroom Adventures. Alright, today we're going to learn how to make a liquid culture, and this is what we're going to use to inoculate our bags of grain that we sterilize later. That'll end up being our grain spawn. Now this is, I'd say, the best way to do it. There's some other ways that people do to propagate their cultures, using maybe like grain jars to grain jars, but I think that the liquid culture is the best way. It's easy. You can store it in the fridge if we need some time. And let's go ahead and make some. You see I have already one kind of getting ready to go. I got a pair of digital scales. I'm going to turn those on. We're going to tare it so it's zeroed. You see here I have bread machine yeast, but any yeast will do. We're going to add half a gram. Close enough. See here I have maltodextrin, which is also known as dextrose. It's a white sugar, simple sugar. And we're going to add 10 grams. Alright, that's close. You don't have to be real exact. You want to make sure you reseal this back up, because in the summertime when it gets humid, your sugar can get sticky and cake. So we're going to add this to one jar. And then also, to every jar, we're going to add 2 drywall screws. See here. And 1 short machine screw, or something like that. And what those will do is that once the mycelium is growing inside the jars, we can twirl the jars around, and since the screws are a different size, they'll kind of slide past each other and chop the mycelium up into finer bits and redistribute it, and that way it'll colonize even quicker throughout. Alright, so we'll go ahead and do the rest of these jars. You want to make sure you don't go too fast and you lose track of how much you got. I'll add some screws to those two. And if you're worried about rust, it's really not an issue, as long as it's not a whole lot. I've never seen rust hurt a mushroom. And I see for these wide mouth quart jars, I have the lids and the rings. Lids have 3/4 inch holes drilled in. You want to make sure you break off the little barbs on the back or tear them off somehow. You see, even though they're covered with rust, as long as they're not rusted through, you can still use them. These are synthetic filter discs, and I'll show you where to get these. I'll post a link. They're great. I've used them over and over again. You can see they're covered with rust too. Doesn't matter. You also, with this, you can use Tyvek painter's jackets, or even Tyvek envelope, like mailing envelope. Cut it in a square in its place. As long as it's wider than the lid itself. And we're going to make sure you want to use the metal part that goes into contact with the rim of the jar. Filter goes on top. Then we're going to use some distilled water if you got it. If you don't have distilled water handy, you can use tap water. It's no big deal. It's just that they'll do better. And then we're going to add 1 cup of water. And all jars should have measuring markers on the sides of them. You'll notice too that 1 cup is also equal to about 250 milliliters. Oh, almost. That's good. All right. We're going to put a lid on each one. Tighten it down good. All right. Now we're going to take some foil. You can reuse your pieces of foil over and over again as long as they're together. And you're going to cover the top of the jar because in the pressure cooker it's going to rain down on them. And you don't want to add any extra water seeping through the filter. That's a little too far gone. There we go. Alright. Now you see I have my pressure cooker here. I've had this one for years and years and used it probably, I don't know, maybe 500 times or more. It's a basic style where it has the weight on the top and uses a rubber gasket on the inside for the seal. The high quality pressure cookers have an aluminum to aluminum seal and don't have this gasket. But pretty much all these smaller ones do. So, you see, we don't have any water in it yet. We're going to arrange the jars. And I couldn't really tell you if this one wasn't ever meant to have quart jars in it, because you can see that the jars actually come up over the rim and it barely fits, and you have to put it in really in this arrangement to work. Another thing we should do too, go ahead and give the jars a mix until all that solid material is dissolved in there. Otherwise it'll tend to cake up and be a little bit harder to break up when after you cook it, rather. Oh, you know what? I don't think there's a, I think I forgot to put the screws in that one. That's how you'll know. Try not to lose screws down the sink too. That's a no-no. There we go. I hear the rattle now. When you twirl these around, make sure that you're not sloshing up the solution up to the lid. You want to see kind of, the bottom I have is kind of a little bit angled toward me as I go. And you can get good as you get some practice. But you don't want it to slosh up and they let the filter get soaked with the solution, because even though there's a filter there, if the filter does get wet, bacteria and mold can grow through it. Alright, we have all the jars. Alright, we have all the jars mixed up and in the pressure cooker. Now the most important part that you never want to forget is you got to add water to the pressure cooker. So we're going to fill these with lukewarm water to about, a third of the way up the jars. You can see there's a decent amount of water in there. All right, put the lid on, make sure it locks all the way. We'll turn our burner on high, and we'll let it go until we start hearing it rattle on the weight at the top, and then we'll turn the heat down. All right, let's wait for a little bit. All right, as you can see, the pressure cooker has come up to pressure, and it's good to let it kind of rattle off and get a good boil going on the inside for about a half a minute. Then once you let it go for a little bit, turn the temperature down. I usually do it at about 3, which is, I guess, medium low on most stoves. I have a gas range. And we're going to set a kitchen timer for 50 minutes, and we'll let it cook. Once it's done, after 50 minutes, we'll turn the heat off completely. Then it'll take about at least 4 or 5 hours for it to cool down enough for us to use in the lab. So we'll come back around then, and we'll do some lab work. Okay, here we are in our lab room. At the moment, all I have running is my secondary HEPA filter that's actually acting as a positive pressure system. Air is coming in, that's filtered, and I see I have the door ajar. That's allowing the air to escape and making a cycle of it cleaning up. And that really helps to have a system like that. And there's ways you could probably modify this too to act the same way without having to have 2 separate HEPA filter systems. But you see, here's the main HEPA filter system. It's called a laminar flow hood. The reason why is because it has these ribbed metal strips, and what it does is that the air comes out nice and evenly in kind of sheets, which allows for no eddy currents or swirling air at the sides, because you want a nice clean basically box of sterilized air coming through. So what we're going to do first is actually spray a little bit of a Lysol or some other equivalent, just a little bit, into the front of the grill there. That's going to really sanitize it more than just spraying alcohol could. All right, we'll go ahead and flip it on. You hear it kick on. We'll go ahead, and I have here a craft light, which is really good because it's a nice even bright light and it folds up, so you can wipe the outside down, keep it clean. So first thing we're going to do now is take a piece of paper towel, fold it up. I have some 91% isopropyl rubbing alcohol. You don't really want to use less because it won't be nearly as effective. See here, I'm just going to saturate this paper towel. And I'm going to wipe down completely my area, sides of my flow hood, top. Going to make sure everything around the area is nice and clean and sanitized. The outside rim of the flow hood, and I like to take my finger and wipe the inside rim as well. You see here I have a pane of glass on top of this table here. And that's kind of important because it's a nice smooth surface that you can easily wipe